We often think childhood trauma only comes from big, dramatic events, but subtle emotional neglect leaves marks that shape how you love, communicate, and react today. Here are 5 signs you experienced it without realizing. Childhood trauma does not always look the way people imagine. Sometimes it is not what happened to you. Sometimes it is what should have happened and never did. Emotional neglect, inconsistent caregiving, and environments where feelings were dismissed leave a specific set of patterns in the nervous system. These patterns do not disappear when you grow up. They simply change shape. And the 5th sign is one that almost nobody connects to their childhood stay until the end. Sign 1, you over-explain and apologize constantly. You say sorry before anyone has reacted. You over-justify decisions that require no justification. You feel a constant, low-level anxiety that you have done something wrong even when you have not. This pattern often traces back to a childhood where your emotions, needs, or presence were treated as inconvenient. When a child grows up feeling like they are too much or not enough, they learn to preemptively manage other people's reactions. The apology becomes a shield. The over-explanation becomes a way of making their existence feel justified. Trauma therapist Pete Walker calls this the fawn response, one of the nervous system's survival strategies. It was once a way to stay safe. In adulthood, it becomes an exhausting default that runs even when there is no danger present. But sign 2 is the one that most quietly damages relationships without anyone fully understanding why. Sign 2, you struggle to trust or open up. You want closeness, but when it gets too close, something pulls back. You keep people at a carefully managed distance, not because you do not care, but because somewhere early in life, closeness became associated with pain, disappointment, or abandonment. The brain learns from experience. If the earliest experiences of closeness were unpredictable or unsafe, the brain files vulnerability as a risk. Attachment researchers call this insecure attachment a pattern formed in childhood that quietly governs every adult relationship. It shows up as pulling away when things feel too good, as waiting for the other shoe to drop, as finding it genuinely difficult to believe that someone's care is real and will last. Sign 3 is the one that looks like a personality trait but is actually a nervous system response. Sign 3, you become anxious when people are quiet or distant. Someone takes a few hours to reply. Someone seems quieter than usual, and something inside you immediately begins searching for what you did wrong. This is called hypervigilance, a state of heightened alertness to social and emotional cues. It develops in children who grew up in unpredictable environments, where a parent's silence could mean danger, where a shift in mood could change the emotional temperature of the entire home. The child had to become an expert at reading tiny signals in order to stay safe. In adulthood, that survival skill becomes an anxiety trigger. The quiet message is not a threat, but the nervous system does not know that yet. Sign 4 explains something you probably thought was just how you are. Sign 4, you seek validation more than you realize. You work harder than the situation requires. You feel disproportionately hurt by mild criticism. You replay compliments the same way you replay criticisms, testing them, never quite letting them settle. This is not vanity. It is a nervous system that never received consistent, unconditional approval as a child. When a child's sense of worth is tied to performance, to being good enough, quiet enough, useful enough, they grow up with an internal approval gap, and they spend their adult life trying to fill it from the outside. Research shows that children who receive conditional love, praise, tied to performance rather than presence are significantly more likely to struggle with self-worth in adulthood. The validation you seek is not a character flaw. It is a need that was never met at the age when it mattered most. And sign 5 is the one that surprises people most. Sign 5, you feel responsible for everyone's emotions. When someone in the room is upset, you feel it as your problem to solve. When someone is quiet, you assume it is something you caused. When conflict enters a space, you feel a compulsion to smooth it over even when it has nothing to do with you. This pattern has a clinical name, emotional parentification. It happens when a child is placed in the role of emotional caretaker for the adults around them. When a parent's mood was the child's responsibility to manage. When keeping the peace was the price of safety. That child grows into an adult who reads every room for emotional weather. who absorbs other people's discomfort as their own, who finds it almost impossible to stay neutral when someone nearby is struggling. This is not weakness. It is what happens when empathy is trained into a child as a survival mechanism rather than developed as a choice. If you recognized yourself in any of these 5 signs, this is not a diagnosis. It is a reflection. Childhood trauma, especially the subtle kind, is not your fault, and the patterns it leaves are not permanent. Understanding where a behavior came from is the first step to choosing something different. If several of these signs feel deeply familiar, consider speaking with a therapist who specializes in trauma. Understanding yourself is never wasted effort. Which of these 5 signs felt most like yours? Let me know in the comments and tell me what country you are watching from. If this helped, subscribe. I will see you in the next one.